in sales management, you're not just sitting back saying, you got to do, you got to do, you got to do. You're setting the time with them so that they can be doing their outreach and doing more of it. And you're giving them higher level goals of people that they have to reach. And you're making sure that, number one, their sales presentation is key. There's 47% of sales representatives that will go into meetings unprepared. So where is their sales presentation in terms of rapport, uncover needs, solutions, and closing? What are the areas that they need to work on? Because in today's day and age, with the 5.3 billion people on the internet and purchasing online, we've got over $1 trillion that people are spending online.
Welcome to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. Today I have a very special guest, Gail Casper. Welcome, Gail.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Avetis. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. Guys, Gail is a 2-time TED speaker, which is no small feat. It's very challenging to get on there. A top-tier sales trainer, a relentless advocate for animal welfare, for what I've seen, and a celebrated media personality who has her own show and is a powerhouse in sales training. Gail, I'm so excited to talk to you today because sales has become like a dirty word, right? Nobody really likes to talk about sales. No one really wants to do sales. I believe the word sales came from a root word in Greek, which means to give. People don't know that.
Oh, so, I didn't know that.
See? And you're the sales expert.
Thank you.
And don't quote me, but I've heard that in the past. But really excited to have you. Thank you for being here, Gail. Let's jump in. Let's talk about your journey up to this point, right? Like tell me a little bit about your early life and how you got to the point where you're doing big TED Talks and writing books about sales.
I know. Gosh, what a change. When I was 19, I actually dropped out of college. I moved to California. I had $2,000 in my pocket, no idea where I was going to live, no job, no car, and just started working at an organization and really working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. My father used to say to me, you know what, Gail, I could take you and put you in the basement in Philadelphia and tell you you're in California. And you wouldn't know the difference because I was just working all the time. And I would find myself doing jobs for free to advance. It was a company that had multiple organizations, one of them being publishing. So I kind of worked my way up the corporate ladder there, but really came back to Philadelphia and ended up staying in an administrative role, ended up in the medical field, did finish my degree, became a manager, and was a bad manager. I was focused more on the task than the people. The more I learned about leadership, the more I fell in love with helping my people achieve excellence in their own lives. And that's what led me to be a speaker. So I moved on to a training organization and got invested in their training programs. And then when I landed my first TV show, they fired me. And I ended up overnight out on my own, no money in the bank, and obviously a consultant that's trying to figure out how to make some money. So that's how it started. That's how it started.
What was your first assignment and how did you come across that?
In my own company? You mean my first assignment? Yeah, I went door knocking, came across a company where they brought me in to train one sales representative on the phone to get indoors and to increase their closing ratio and get more sales, like upsell mostly, more revenue per sale. And that led me to training 2 of their outside sales reps and then 4, and then the entire department and then another department inside the company. And that company was ADT Security Services, the largest security company in the world. And that led me up and down the East Coast with my official training program to bring into all the different branches of the organization. So that was I got lucky, but I worked hard and it unfolded and I didn't see it coming, which was kind of a cool way to go. You know, it was kind of cool.
You get lucky by working hard.
Yeah, thank you.
Somebody criticized Oprah. They said, you know, if you really look at her career, it's not as big of a deal because she really got lucky, right? And absolutely not. She got lucky because she constantly put herself in position to be lucky. People forget that, right? They think, oh, she somehow magically met the person who wanted to start a show. No, she constantly worked hard to get there. It sounds like a similar story. So there you go. You're on your way to becoming the next Oprah.
Okay. Well, from your lips to God's ears.
I love it. So, Gail, you're known for your customized sales programs. Like, what do you believe sets your program apart from all the different sales professional trainings that you see out there? There's a million.
I know there are so many. And I would say, as far as myself, it is the level of customization that I do, because it's not just incorporating questions. It's not just understanding what the company is about or their value proposition, but it's really learning the products. When I'm getting ready to do a training session or a speech, I will interview top sales representatives within the company. Some of them that are just starting out, I will talk to management. I will spend months preparing to get in front of a group and bring my training program in and identify key objections that even the most tenured sales reps have not figured out how to overcome. So I really get in the trenches with the team to understand what's going on and where they're experiencing challenges, and then to back them up to present my training and incorporate those objections and challenges into the solutions that I prepare. So it's high level, real high level.
What are some of your what are some industries that you've seen the most progress in, or that you have the most expertise in?
Obviously, security industry. I've worked in the security industry for at least 12 to 13 years. And then the steel business is something that I'm really bridging into. It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum there. And the eyewear industry. So those are just a couple of the ones that I've kind of tapped into. But when I tap into them, I tap into them strong.
How do you find a lot of differences in the kind of overcoming objections and the approach to getting in front of a customer in those different industries?
It's not always a different approach. Sometimes you have to mold it a little bit. You have to understand that, some people can't be as hardcore and walk in the door and work to get an appointment with somebody. Some people, it's through a telephone. Sometimes it's through email initially, or through a Zoom meeting that's set up, or a webinar for a company. So it depends. On my end, I try to bring people full circle. So we're not only focused on the cold calling element, but also the existing customer base and how we can upsell them, the referrals that we can build, and also associations that they may create networks with, where they'll go in and actually speak to that association and not sell the product, because associations don't let you come in and do that, but educate the audience so that it creates interest for the audience in their product. So I try to take it full circle. What are the key elements, key ways that they're building business, and what can we do and complement based on what they're doing right now?
Gail, in a healthy economy, it's very easy to sell. It's more like customer service than it is sales, right? What happens? How do you adjust? How do you recommend people adjust in, let's say, technical sales, right? Whether it be, selling a SaaS platform, selling recruiting services, or selling some kind of consulting service, or whatever it is. How do you recommend that they adjust to kind of a supply and demand challenge, right? Where there's no as much need for the service. How do you teach your folks to adjust to that?
We increase the amount of outreach that we do, meaning you've got to discipline, and I typically talk to sales management, they've got to discipline their teams to be doing more and be more invested in the process. So in sales management, you're not just sitting back saying, you got to do, you got to do, you got to do. You're setting the time with them so that they can be doing their outreach and doing more of it. And you're giving them higher level goals of people that they have to reach. And you're making sure that, number one, their sales presentation is key. There's 47% of sales representatives that will go into meetings unprepared. So where is their sales presentation in terms of rapport, uncover needs, solutions, and closing? What are the areas that they need to work on? Because in today's day and age, with the 5.3 billion people on the internet and purchasing online, we've got over $1 trillion that people are spending online. You better be ready when you meet somebody, because if you're going to meet them, they want to buy. They don't have to buy, they can go online today. They don't have to do anything today. So if they meet with you, they want to buy from you.
And with AI now becoming the new email, right? So we're all getting thousands of emails from a bot, from an AI system. How do you kind of differentiate yourself as an actual human being trying to connect with someone at that level? Because that's the problem. There's so much noise. People don't really know. They just assume at this point that the email from Gail's not even Gail, right? It's some AI system that's feeding it.
Or it's been copied and pasted. And I don't know how many, we've talked through LinkedIn, but that was in our initial introduction. But I get messages through LinkedIn all the time, people trying to sell me
Yeah.
something. And I think what's most important is we add that personal touch. Number one, we can send video messages to people to let people know who's on the other end. And we have to get comfortable with that and being able to portray that message in a video that is then sent to a potential opportunity. But the more you can customize, personalize, understand maybe what's going on, look at their website, what are they selling and why and to who, and how specifically you can meet those needs, then you're gearing it more toward them. And I don't know about you, but when I read anything that's AI, I know it. I know that it's AI. It is not a person. And if I see that word transformation one more time, because that's such an AI word in my world, it's just like, oh my God, really? Like you get off of the AI, start to put yourself in the world of the customer to help them and, solve their problems.
Gail, one of actually the way we met was through our referrals. So I think Holly referred us to each
Yes.
other, and what it did, it came through the noise, and it was obvious that this was an actual email, that this was something I needed to take serious. Like, how do you recommend people create that type of bond, whether it's affiliate programs or friendships or whatever, to be able to get referral business? Because I find it to be by far, the most, it's the easiest way to get business, right? Is getting referred. I'm sure it starts with great service, obviously, but beyond that, how do you create these opportunities where you do get referrals?
It's a couple different things, because I love LinkedIn, but I also feel like it's a challenge because you are connecting with somebody you don't know. So I'm really grateful that you have me here, that we met, that we talked, that you found something of value that I could bring to your world. That means a lot to me. But typically in a LinkedIn world, it's stranger to stranger. You don't really know who you're dealing with on the other end. So to have those Zoom calls where you're actually setting something up to connect and meet them before you actually decide to do business with them is a very big deal. The other thing, which is not outdated, but people aren't doing enough of it, is the networking element.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world where people can meet you, connect with you, and it's a face-to-face interaction where they then feel comfortable with you and they want to know more about what it is that you offer. So I don't think that we can let go of those in any circumstance, whether it's a hobby or a business networking event. Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with different opportunities all the time.
Networking, you're absolutely right. Networking used to be a big part of sales and development of your kind of career, and I see less and less people doing it. We've been sending a lot of our folks here, our client success managers, to AI summits. They go, they learn, they connect. Sometimes they get business, sometimes they don't, but they create real opportunities to get in front of decision makers and learn and become part of the industry versus yet another email that gets ignored.
I love that. I love that. That's because nothing beats it. And with our cell phones and with the computers today, we've gotten away from that. We forget people, and there's nothing more powerful. And honestly, there's nothing more important than another human being.
Agreed.
We're all trying to get to that next level and that next step. And if we can help each other along the way, then it's a win.
Agreed. Let's talk a little bit about your systematic attitude development technique. I think that's one that you developed that I heard about.
Yeah. Thank you. It's one of my favorite things that I've created. I've got two. The other one is my sales process, but the systematic attitude development technique is all about getting logical in the face of emotion, and sales reps can definitely relate to this, because if you have to do cold calling or you've got to do outreach, it's like, oh my God, or I've got to go to a networking event and I got to talk to people I don't know. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's emotional though. The logical piece of it is, okay, let's get dressed. Let's get in the car. I've got 10 people I want to talk to today. This is it's a very logical step. Think of it in terms of emergency personnel.
Okay.
When they have to deal with a gunshot wound, they don't run from the scene. First thing that they're given is awareness of what it is that they might face out in the field. The second thing they're given is training. And then the third thing that they do is they build that experience along the way. But it's a very logical process that they're taught how to handle it, and they handle it. And with the systematic attitude development technique is just like those mornings where you're like, you know what? tomorrow I'm going to get up and work out. And then tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., the alarm goes off and you're like, I don't feel like getting out of bed. That's emotional, but you get out of bed and you do it and you have a great day and you're so glad that you did. That's the systematic attitude development technique. So it goes through everything from where's your attitude to who's your steel team, the people that can help support you along the way so that you stay on track, to if you're faced with a crisis, how do you get out of the crisis and get out of that emotion to get logical and take steps to achieve your goals.
Gail, I had a meeting with Damon John in Miami a few weeks ago. Really interesting. And one of the things he talked about is, have you read the book Grow and Think Rich? And I said, yes. He said, read it again. Because he could tell while I had read it, it wasn't like, oh yeah, immediate.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said is, you got to create your goals. You got to read it first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening. He said, to a point where after you read that, you better not be talking to your wife about a vacation or your daughter about, her test or whatever. You basically, those are your goals, and you fall asleep thinking about those things, obsessing over things. You wake up, it's the first thing you read, no phone time. That's the first thing you read and you get going. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, right? Because that's the failure to launch a lot of times is the biggest issue we have. Is, it's my cold calling hour, I'm not going to do it. I was supposed to walk into businesses today. I don't want to do it. There's a lot of phrases around this. One is eat the frog, right? I think is a British term, which is like,
I've heard of that.
Do the ugliest thing first. Do the one thing you definitely don't want to do. I don't know if licking the frog or eating the frog, if it's fun or not. I don't know. But the concept is get it over with, right? But in your way is like, you've got a whole plan of all the things that could potentially go wrong and how you go about that crisis. Like, for example, if someone walks in and they blown off, right? How do they deal with that? I don't know if it covers that, but that's a lot of times people have fears, and one of the biggest fears is feeling stupid or feeling embarrassed because someone doesn't give them respect. It rarely happens. I think the world's gotten a lot kinder, but it's also gotten a lot less human.
Well,
right? They're almost shocked. They're shocked that someone's trying to talk to them and walking in to talk to them versus yet another email that they're going to ignore.
Yeah, and the reality is, though, it's harder sometimes to get endorsed because there's don't solicit signs that are up, and I've experienced times where I go out in the field with sales representatives. And we're ready to go. We plan the morning. We're set. Everybody knows their part. We're walking down the walkway. We're reaching for the handle of the door when the receptionist looks at us and shakes her head no. And it's like, we didn't even get in the door. So it happens. And I think forever it's going to be a fear of sales reps. And actually, I hate to mention my newsletter, but if people subscribe to my newsletter, I have this free poster that they can download that actually talks about the challenges that the sales rep has gone through. And really, they are the most important person in a company. They are the driving force behind getting us to number one.
Wow.
They absolutely are. And how we handle the call, not making it salesy, making it real. I'm not saying don't do the sales process. You do the sales process because that is built to break down barriers. And if we're not doing it, then we're not going to break down the barriers we need to. So you follow that sales process, but you do it from a genuine place and you do it with passion in your heart for what it is you have to offer, knowing that the other person is scared to death because they're afraid to make the wrong decision, but you're going to help them through it. So if we can stand behind that and really get out there and be passionate about what we do, then we're going to ultimately see companies will see the successes that they can have, and the sales reps, sales professionals are going to see the successes that they can have.
And I think my advice would be, if you're a sales professional and you don't believe in your product or service, you shouldn't be working there. Or you should be in a different role. It's just a waste of your life. Go do something else, Either love what you do so that selling it is easy because you love it. Now the biggest challenge is getting in front of people. But when you get them, you're so excited that they feel the passion, they feel the excitement versus just checking another box, hour 3 of my 8-hour miserable day. Get out of that business, get out of sales, get out of that company, go do something else if you don't love what you're doing, because it's a waste of life. So I agree.
And I thank you for saying that, because I've talked to sales reps and I've asked them, why are you here? because when I go into companies and they're like, well, it's close to home. And I'm just like, really, dude, that's all you got?
That's all
Like,
you
get
got?
out.
There's other businesses close to home. Where do you live?
Exactly. Right. Like don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to the company. And I try to instill in my hiring programs, that we have to hire more carefully. I understand that you want bodies, but you want the right bodies. You can build anything off of the right bodies.
Tell us a little bit about the hiring well for sales folks, Gail. Like where does it start? What are some things that you look for that people might not be thinking?
Well, first and foremost is I always say, get back to your core competencies. What are the core competencies of the position that you have in place? So whether that's the passion for the job and the product, and believe me, you might get people that haven't been in the field and they're kind of like, I really don't know that's okay. I'll teach you. But if you don't love it after I teach you, get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the theory. But so the passion for the product, the passion for learning, they have to want to continuously be better in their role because it doesn't just happen by magic. Resilience, we want them to have that, but also understand the fact that myself as a sales manager, I got to be in the trenches with them. Meaning if they're struggling, they need that kick in the butt, they need some support, they need guidance, they need structure. I'm not going to leave them out in the cold and just be like, well, you're in sales, figure it out. They're human beings. I have to be part of that process. So, and what do they consider important in dealing with customers? So think about that as a core competency. What is your goal in sales? Yes, you want to make money. Awesome. What about the customer? What are you thinking with regard to them? So you take the core competencies of the position and then you develop questions based on those core competencies to assess if that's the right person for the job.
Got it.
So 3 to 4 questions for every core competency and get them to tell stories along the way.
Yeah.
Who are they? Who are you talking to? If you don't know who you're talking to, then how can you expect them to perform?
That's interesting. Stories are a big deal. We look for stories as well when we're interviewing because people that love their what they do have stories. They have exciting things that they uncovered and they changed and the impacts they've made versus bullets of tasks that they've done. Right. That's another thing I would recommend is when you're looking at a resume, look for accomplishments, numbers for a salesperson versus you'll see them saying like tasks that they did. Right.
I
versus
agree.
accomplishments. So that's huge. A birdie named Nicholas told me that you were a semi-finalist on The Apprentice. Is that accurate? Tell me a little bit about that.
Semi-finalist to be on The Apprentice, yes. Meaning I was called to LA and I was part of the group that I think they had like 14 people that they put on the show and I was like 18 or something, meaning I just missed it. It was an amazing experience just to get to that level. Like obviously being like so heavily into business and so competitive, it would have been like the perfect match for me, in that world. But it was a cool experience to get that far in the process.
What did you learn during that process?
Oh God, how to lose. Because to get that close and then you're like, they're telling you sorry, but pack your bags. That makes it just sad. But I think too, it's like you have to be able to think quickly on your feet. When I look back at some of the situations, I certainly put in a fight. Like when I was sitting with some other competitors and the Mr. Trump and, the producers are there and they're asking questions of certain people. Like, you've got to be ready to jump in. You've got to be ready to fight for yourself. And I was definitely doing like the best that I could in for being caught off guard. But it does tell you to try to think ahead as much as you can. You don't know what you're in for. But be always ready to fight for yourself because it is a sign of confidence. Which leads right back to sales. A sales representative, when you're fighting for that product, you believe in it so much that, it's hard for the customer to say no, even if their fear is there of the decision that they have to make, because it's such a great thing to have.
How did you've been in media? How did having your own show and contributing to Success Magazine contribute to your sales career as a trainer and also doing sales yourself?
Partially the confidence level. Number one, it just takes you up a level when you're doing all of that. And I've had to fight for everything I've had. There hasn't been a single thing that has been handed to me. Like I've had to fight for it to work my way up the ladder to get that show. It was the gentleman, John Gorcho. He was an executive producer with Comcast and then moved on to another network. And that's how I got pulled into that show. But it was being on his doorstep constantly and fighting for the idea of the program to get that on the show. But just the idea, too, of writing all of the scripts for the show, having a piece in the directorial part of it. I became an executive producer, not an executive producer, but a producer. I was an executive producer for that show, but I became a producer for Discovery Networks after that.
Wow.
So it led to other opportunities. Now it's like one of my jobs, because I'm a communications trainer, is I go into organizations and I will put people in front of the camera so that they can be comfortable in front of the camera. And like I do that because of my sales, customer service, and leadership training. It's easy for me to take anybody, put them in front of a camera, give them a script on the spot, and have them say it and coach them through the process. So like it's doing all the things that I've done. And you know this based on everything you've achieved. It just kind of builds you full circle to take all of those things into the world that you're in.
Part of the reason I do all the crazy stuff that I do is it's a challenge, and I'm nervous, and I like being nervous. It's rare that I'm nervous. So when I try something new, there's fear, there's nervousness, and you feel alive. And then you realize like, oh my God, that wasn't so difficult. So each time it kind of allows you to know that the next challenge will be scary until it's not.
Right.
And so that's why I do so many different things. Is part of it is just, let me see if I can do it. And if I can't, all right, well, that was definitely not for me. Let's move on, right? So I have a lot of fun doing that.
Okay.
What you talked about, obstacles, right? All the different things. Like what's one really, really significant obstacle that you face throughout your career in whatever it is, whether it's your coaching career, whether it's the show, whether, sales, when you were doing sales yourself, what was it? Like what was that obstacle and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think the biggest, I would say two of them. When I left management role to go work at a training organization, my job was to sell the training programs so that I could speak them, so that I could then be on my feet. So I left a job that it wasn't a ton of money, but it was about $60,000 a year to go 100% commission. So that was one, and I don't know that I thought much about it, but I have to say that worked in my favor, that, you know what I mean? Because I was on my own, you got to pay your bills. But the other thing was when I got the TV show, when I was working at the training organization and they fired me and I was on my own overnight, in my own company, and I had to just figure it out. Like, again, I'm on my own. I'm living by myself. How am I going to pay the bills? I've got no money in the bank. I've got to find clients. I think my first year in business, and I started on unemployment. I was on unemployment trying to build, and I think I made total $17,000 in my first year. So, you're trying to get that ball rolling, and you get up every day. People have said working on your own, sometimes don't you want to sleep in? I'm up at like 5, 6 in the morning every day. And that's since I've started my business. There's never a day that it's like, well, it's a 10 o'clock morning. That just doesn't exist in my world. There's a plan every day when I get up of what it is I have to do. And, of course, sometimes I fall off track with those things. But people say I'm too hard on myself. So I like to think that a little bit because I really do push myself to get a lot done, as I'm sure you do.
One of the things people are afraid to do is to take a step back. It's scary to them. And it's like, why would I quit a good job that pays this much to go do something from scratch? Don't if you don't believe in yourself, right? It sounds like you genuinely believed in yourself. You bet on yourself to do it. And you kind of burned the boats, it sounded like, because I'm sure you were tempted to run back, right? You were tempted to run back and find another job that was 60, 70,000 guaranteed, that was easier. How did you mentally overcome that? Just your own mental, maybe you didn't feel that way, but most people do, right? They quit a really good job, they go somewhere else and they're struggling, and there's always a temptation to go back to whatever they were doing.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't. I think that the employer, the training organization wanted me to. That's what they were hoping for. And I look back on that time and I say to myself, I intimidated a major training organization somehow with my skills that they wanted me to be fired, go back to work full time in some company and disappear. And I actually became their competitor.
Nice.
So when I left, it was just kind of like, okay, I really did want to help people achieve their goals. That was always my mission. That's why I went to them to begin with. Once I found that, I didn't want to let that go. And I've always belonged on my feet. I know that. Like, I am a speaker. But I just, once I was fired, it was just like, okay, Gail, how are we going to build this? That's really, and it was tough. I don't know if you've ever been in that spot, like meaning working out of a one-bedroom apartment. And sometimes I'd get up in the morning and I know I had 50,000 things to do, but I just couldn't. Like, I'm trying to get started and I just I'm pacing, probably the anxiety of all of it. Like, I wasn't getting started, but like, I wasn't sitting there watching television,
Yeah.
That wasn't my world, but it was just like, okay, how do we get this ball rolling? And if I start, am I going to fail? But then things started to happen. And, when they start to happen, then you're sucked into real world stuff. You got to get it done.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about your book. You have a new book, right?
Yes.
Sell like a
cockatoo, how to master the new way of selling in a rapidly changing world. I'm very excited about that, just like the systematic attitude development technique, because in today's world, we've got to raise the bar with every single thing we do, how we present, how we come across to a customer, how we ask questions, how we build that level of rapport, mastering the objections piece of the puzzle, because we're dealing with a customer that is stressed and we're stressed. We got like deadlines. We got bosses like you breathing down our neck that, we're expecting results. So like, we're stressed. So how in that environment do you get yourself in a neutral place, which is what Cockatoo is about, so that you're aware of your own body language, tone of voice, and words, that you're in the best position to read the customer and then help guide them through the process. It has a really strong focus on momentum, meaning that when you're so confident in yourself, and you know that this is the best thing for that customer, you will guide them through the process and bring them to a close.
That's great, right? Because one thing you said is that it's best for the customer. People forget that. Like, they think sales is just trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want. It's absolutely not. That is just the wrong form of sales. And that's why people burn out and leave, because they think they're supposed to sell everybody everything all the time. The truth is, sometimes you need to say, no, it's not a good service for what you're trying to do. It's not the right customer. You're not the right customer for us. You're too small. You're too big. You're not committed. You're not urgent. This is not the right time. Or, you know what? I don't think our service provides what you need right now. Let's connect when it does. So that it seems like the first obstacle is your salespeople have to understand that they shouldn't be just selling to sell. They should be selling only if they believe in the product or service is actually giving the customer what they need. Am I right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it comes from a genuine place. And it's hard. I mean, I love salespeople. My God, I'll defend them, in any situation. I love them because I know they're trying to earn a living, or they're trying to, make numbers, or they're trying to just stay afloat. And if they see a customer, they meet with the customer, my God, you don't want to lose them. I can understand that. I mean, that's just genuine. That's honest. But if they can get down to, wait a minute, let me figure out who I'm talking to, your chances of closing are going to go up. That's the difference. If you can say, okay, well, wait a minute, this is really good for them, or this, based on if we made this adjustment, or maybe it's not this product, it's this one. But if we really are listening, then we're in the best spot to build the connection, which is really ultimately which closes the deal. It's that simple.
I agree. It's that rapport building, genuine rapport building, right?
Yep.
Gail, tell me about the Cockatoo idea. That came from something. What does that even mean?
Okay, so two different things here.
Yeah.
Number one, I had a mentor. His name was Hank, and he's responsible for millions of dollars in sales. And he was someone that when he walked into a room, like, you would look. You felt compelled to, even if he wasn't there to see you. His tone of voice matched everything he did when he sold. So there was a consistency in everything about him. So you, as a customer, believed him. So the essence of Cockatoo follows those principles. But I often thought that sales is a dance, meaning you're moving with the customer or trying to get them to move, especially if they're nervous, they're scared, or whatever their case, their situation might be. So it's a dance, and Cockatoos dance. So, and then when I looked further into the Cockatoo, they need consistency. Well, sales reps need consistency. You've got to make sure they're on a certain track and that they follow that track, especially if they're pursuing new business. They don't like to be bored. You can't leave a sales rep by themselves. They're going to find things to do, go online, hang out. Do you know what I'm saying? You've got to make sure that they are not bored and you're training them at the highest level. Cockatoos are loud. When a sales rep is fighting for a customer, when they're fighting for a commission, when they're fighting for a situation, man, or they close a deal, man, they're loud. You can hear cockatoos for, I think, 3 miles. So that's how far you can hear them. So,
wow, they really are loud.
Yeah. So, but there were just so
the
many.
word loud, what is like, how should a sales person be loud in a not obnoxious way, right? Because it's about getting their message across is what I'm getting from the Cockatoo being loud. Like, what does that look like?
Well, and sometimes it's inappropriate. Like you know what I'm saying? The camaraderie of the team, or they're excited about a sale. I think that there's a place for that. I think if they're fighting for a customer, there's a place for that. Of course, we always want to work with them to train them to be more assertive than aggressive. But, sales reps are sales reps. And I think that's one of the things I love about them is that, they are who they are. And that is some of their personalities is to be that way. And I can understand it because I'm going to get hit in the face how many times and get how many no's before I finally get a yes. So I'm either going to fall to my knees and say thank you because, oh my God, I need that sale, or I'm going to get loud and excited. So I take it for what it is.
I get it. In tech, very few people, very few companies actually have phone numbers that work. And it's not often you can reach someone. And now they're creating all these different ways and systems to basically block everything, including emails. How do you get through to these folks to get in front of them when you have something to offer that's genuinely good for them?
Like, meaning schedule an appointment, go meet them, or just
how do
get
you
out
get
in the
their
field?
attention, right? Like, you're talking about, in a world where you used to be able to call people, right? You cold call them and you get them, and hopefully you have an opportunity to build a rapport. Now you can't be reached, right? These folks can't be reached. How do you go about creating that opportunity besides networking? Obviously, we talked about that. What are other ways?
Through social media, are they reachable through social?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay.
Talking in general, right?
Because I would introduce myself somehow through that way, but the initial interaction wouldn't be the sale. It would be based something on what it is they do or have done, or something about, what they're working on. I wouldn't be just like right in their face to try to sell them initially. I would try to build contact. If there isn't rapport, unless it's an absolute need immediately, it's a very difficult thing to do. I would always still try for the phone number and the contact information on the website. So no matter what, and I would always try going high level before you have to be redirected lower. So those are just a couple of the things that I would do off the top of my head.
One of the things that drives me crazy, Gail, is I'll get 40 LinkedIn emails a day. I'll get let's say an invite. The second I accept, there's already an automated message selling. I already see it. It's a long message with a calendar link, and immediately I delete it or move it to my other folder. It's become too common, right? It's like,
yep.
Oh, I got you. Now I'm going to sell you. You don't know me from Adam. And 80% of the time, the stuff that they're selling me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you even know what I do, what my companies do? Like, what are you, like, did you even do any research? So part of your advice was to actually connect and try to engage and get to know people. Not just don't throw your Calendly link and a long message about your service. I won't read it. I have like this weird block. I don't know what it is. I'm staring at it and I already know what it is, and immediately I'm disconnected. So I think that you got good advice there. Don't just sell the minute someone accepts your calendar invite.
And one of the things I've done, because I have a webinar that I'm going to be doing, is connecting through people through LinkedIn. But my initial interaction with whoever these people are, it's just a connection. I just want to connect at first. Like check me out, go to my page, see what I'm about, and accept my invitation. So rather than, okay, connect and here's a big message for you, it's try to at least build a connection before you even get into anything. Because then I follow it up with, hey, I got a great webinar.
You have to. I mean, but you're also providing a resource, right? So if someone gives me a webinar, that's great. If I like the webinar, I'm going to sign up. If I don't, I don't, Right. Gail, you definitely have your finger on the pulse with sales industry. Tell me a little bit about what trends you see emerging in the next few years with the kind of the invention of AI, that's now, hitting sales hard, right? Like tech companies are aggressively trying to eliminate themselves doing sales, and they're trying to use AI to do it because it's cheaper and I don't know if it works or not. And you don't have to hire anyone. You don't have to deal with people issues. Tell me a little bit about that. What impact does AI have on the future? What do you see?
It's interesting because I have mixed feelings about AI since I'm not a big fan of it. I am in certain respects when it comes down to research and figuring things out.
Sure.
But when it comes down to actually eliminating the human-to-human contact, you really, they've got to really shoot wide with a big net, which is, yes, I could see that happening, real big net to maybe get one or two people that are going to bite on that. So the nets are going to get bigger and they're just going to shoot sporadically versus really be targeted. So if I had to give advice to companies, it would be to get really targeted and really get to know who these people are, what potential customers are needing right now, and to forecast what you can bring different for the future. So that would be my advice, number one, for that. Number two, what I really see happening, and this is where Cockatoo comes into play, is that all employees in stores that exists, like there is a place for stores, there is a place for that, but all employees will be trained on selling. So it won't just be the customer service element of it. Every single employee will have that training to be able to upsell opportunities so that they are keeping those stores in business and surviving.
Amazing. Gail, tell us where people can reach you. You've been amazing. I've learned a ton. Tell us how people can reach you, to do business with you, to maybe join that webinar. I think you have one coming up very soon, which might be too early, but how do people reach you?
Go to gailcasper.com, and that's GailKasper, Casper like the ghost with a K. As a matter of fact, I have a newsletter there where I keep people informed as to some of the things that I'm doing. But what I think people would really benefit from is, number one, they get 3 different downloads, 3 opportunities when they sign up, one of them being the poster for Cockatoo, so they can get a sense of what that's all about. I also have the 3 most overlooked sales tools that will help people close more sales, so they'll get that as a free gift.
Nice.
And also 3 things that will light your ass on fire to achieve your biggest goals, because I think that's always important for all of us to stay on track with that.
Yep.
But all of those things will be a huge benefit in terms of just staying current, because I always include what's going on today and what's coming for the future. So they would be officially part of my newsletter list at that time. Amazing. So thank you for asking that. Thank you.
And then how do we get your book? Is it already out? Is it on Amazon? How do we get it?
It's not on Amazon yet, but it is in Barnes & Noble. Author House is the publisher, so they could also go to that website to get it. So if they do a Google search, they should be able to find it fine.
Great. And we'll put it in the show notes so people can find it. Gail, any last minute thoughts before you go and do your awesome webinar?
I'm so impressed by you and what you've accomplished that I just am so grateful to be part of your podcast, and thank you for helping me get this message out there, because I think that salespeople are our most important tools. Important.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you being here, Gail. Thank you. I'm honored to have you. And there's we have accomplished a good amount, but there's a ton of work to be done, right?
Yeah.
So I learned a ton from you. Thank you, Gail. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon, wherever you are, and we'll talk soon.
I'd love it. Thank you so much. Bye.
And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Avetis Antaplyan, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.